Hi everyone, this is Carrick from ACG, and today I'm bringing you the review for Transformers Devastation, a callback to the teenage years for many of us, when cartoons like Mask, G.I. Joe, and Transformers set the stage for epic battles where death didn't happen unless it was in a feature-length film, and even then it was reversed in the cartoons next season, because back then, leaders never died, they just turned into Galvatron. Devastation is a beat-em-up action game in the vein of, let's say, Bayonetta, and in some ways Vanquish, part of the Transformers Generation line. Devastation's visual design is exactly like the original Transformers TV series. That means less cumbersome and ultimately far more visually pleasurable effects and designs than Michael Bay's horrid abominations. So here we go with the review. Starscream's failed plans, farm tractor badasses, a somehow not dated cassette tape player third in command, and robot dinosaurs. 2 words that prove heaven is real. Graphics, as always, are up first, and what a glorious thing they are. Pacing with rarely a frame rate hitch, Transformers delivers what it would look like if you could jump into your VCR when it's playing your old cartoons and make them come to life. This is a cartoon game that makes other cartoon games look like they're games trying to be cartoons, and has animation that's not only representative of the original, but keeps an eye firmly towards the traditional. Gone are ultra-complex transformations created to please the ADD-ridden crowd in past titles, and back are the slicker and somewhat more elegant puzzle piece transformations of the original fiction. Every character that appears is so close to their ancient designs, from Grimlock's tiny Robosaurus hands and thick as a motorhome tail, to Starscream's slightly weak chin and Megatron's massive cankles. The designs of the Gen 1 Transformers have always had a fairly straightforward look, artfully articulating what needs to be, and not everything, resulting in more personality with less overall moving parts. And I'm telling you, personality leaks from these dudes. Wheeljack's inclusion reminds us that all the other Transformers are simply there to hold his keys, while Optimus Prime's design and layout is as expected, a perfect artistic translation of the phrase badass SOB. The Decepticons are form perfect as well, with both the high-end leadership like Starscream and Shockwave and Soundwave, backed up with a few slightly lesser known bad guys like Blitzwing making up their forces as a whole. While Bumblebee is a dexterous dancer light on his feet, he looks nothing like a VW Bug when transformed, and more like those plastic cars you can buy and put a 3-year-old inside so they can pedal it around Fred Flintstone style. Megatron turns into, well, not a gun. That's all you need to know, not a gun. Shockwave turns into a gun, but not Megatron. That's pretty much the equivalent of Optimus Prime turning into a fucking walkie-talkie, even if that walkie-talkie has a barrel and does world-ending damage. Equally, the worlds are barren as barren could be, which is another reminder that they are trying to hit the look of the older cartoon, but absolutely nut-crunching repetitiveness in the environments and the times you see them does dull the senses a bit, even if you do change it up a bit around the end. The camera, however, does a fairly admirable job wrestling 300 tons of pissed-off robots battling it out on a football field-sized arena. Though when you do get close without a lot of manual control, it can basically turn into ankle vision. Additionally, due to the graphic stylings, regardless if you're on a past-gen or a current-gen system, you won't see much difference other than some effects, geometry on buildings, and a difference in the resolution. A few idiosyncrasies like that aside, the game still looks the part and has come the closest to any kind of faithful rendition of original source material like this. I absolutely love the look. Sound, music, and voice.
That should do it. Operation Obliteration.
Sounds up first, and, well, I have to say it was actually average. I was disappointed that the middle of the range was heavily crowded at times, and there was not a lot of variation in dynamic range, resulting in anything more than, say, 2 to 3 giant predatory robots fighting in an area, and things had a tendency to get crunchy. The top end is there, but usually only pops its head up with very specific weapons and a few character voices in particular. I wasn't incredibly in love with the mixing, to be honest, and some quick changes to the audio settings. Luckily, Transformers Devastation realizes that people don't just have stereos, but have surround sound stereos. It did settle down a bit. Now that being said, all the sounds were respectful of the original cartoon, from the blaster Starscream wielded in his many retreats to the thrum of Optimus's autocannon. Here you also have a tremendous number of non-traditional weapons as well, and they're handled excellent, with each having some type of unique soundscape. I would say good, but with a smidge of mud in there. Music. Yeah, the sound you hear is babies crying because of the lack of Stan Bush, but other than that, once you get over it, the music is excellent. Vince DiCola, the composer of Transformers the movie, wrote original music for the game alongside Kenny Meriedeth, and apparently they like 1980 guitar riffs as much as your older uncle who won't quit talking about Def Leppard. Guitar-driven rock songs with an aim to get your blood pumping is half the music here, but in what I have to say is a very eloquent handling of audio decisions, there are also very classical pieces, and simply due to everyone thinking the new Batman movies invented violins in their music, you're going to probably be reminded of those movies a couple times in more poignant cutscenes here. It's driving, excellent, and time period perfect, with wailing guitar themes for every bad guy that shows up. Nothing so memorable as Darth Vader's theme song or something from Stan Bush, but highly relevant when it comes to matching audio with visuals. Absolutely excellent. But again, no Stan Bush. At least from what I could find. Maybe he's hiding behind one in the game. Voice. Listen. When you get many of the original voice actors back and have an audio director that actually cares, you get excellence, and that is what we have here, with everyone from Optimus to Sideswipe, which is the gravel-swallowing voice of Peter Cullen and Michael Bell, respectively. There's some age rubbed off on some of the voices, though. Megatron sounds a bit older, just a tad, something you sort of cock your head sideways like a dog the first time you hear it, and then he shoots you in the face and you don't worry about it anymore. The voices are awesome, and every character is the caricature you hoped for. Even the insults are cribbed from the cartoon, and it's as cherished as it is cheesy. Absolutely stunning voice. And now, as always, the big dog, which is gameplay. The story starts out like any other love story. There's a city, two warring factions, and a bunch of fucking insect robots transforming it, and sentient cars want to figure out why. After that, it sort of becomes the same fare you expect from a Transformers cartoon. A plot that moves you forward without getting in the way. It's almost like their plot points are simply the names of locations, and as long as they mention the location once or twice, we, as gamers, will just go along for the ride. Here, you take charge of a growing number of Autobots hiding out in your spaceship and take on missions to take down the Decepticreeps by shooting, stabbing, slashing, breaking, headbutting, freezing, ramming, burning, and breaking your enemies with a series of combat moves and weapons. Missions also start out somewhat the same. You enter a location and are told that the Decepticons are screwing with nature and all that humanity finds holy. The game is mostly about traveling through funneled areas to large arenas where battle plays out against thunderous guitar-introduced bad guys. And yeah, at many times, that's absolutely as cool as it sounds. As you engage in combat early, you start to see the simplicity that Platinum was going for. You have 4 weapon slots to fit various items in you find that require energon if they shoot and good timing if they don't, and just a couple starting moves for combat. But as with all Platinum games, there's an expertise required to really get the goods from their titles. You can blast enemies with your assorted high-tech weaponry, slice and dice them with everything from swords to hammers and axes, or go roboto e roboto, smashing the light and heavy buttons, performing powered combos that can be somewhat extended by a few moves that you can purchase, that I'll discuss later. Punch an enemy into the sky and then leap up to cut them back down with your newfound electric star sword, or artfully dodge an enemy and go into focus mode, where the game lovingly transforms into a slow-motion dance of digital line drawings like the original cartoon's starting credits, or hammer away at the power attacks and hope you hit enough so that you can quickly transform into your second form and perform a car combo, which is as crazy as it sounds and about twice as cool. While Optimus Prime swings his huge ass around in a circle, kicking enemies aside like an out-of-control bucking bronco, Wheeljack lets loose with modified Sidewinder missiles, and Grimlock can maul the hell out of anyone with a body slam and a dino headbutt. You can also each have special moves that you can unlock when you've seen enough action. The impact is tremendous and the action is brutally and suitably fast. Also, the AI is stunningly good and attacks relentlessly, transforming one moment into a jet and blasting you with a cloud of missiles, then dropping from the sky like a meteorite to spin kick your robotic grill. What's ultra impressive here is how well the car and its handling is well, handled. Though there is the occasional dead stop, Platinum wisely made anything about 6 feet and above something you can drive over. Think drunk Californian at a sidewalk restaurant and you get the idea. And you're gonna find yourself pulling quick burnout U-turns in small areas and then triggering your car to Autobot transformation attack, which has you slamming at full speed into your enemy as you transform into a robot to hammer the shit out of them. Then, if timed right, transform back into a car and attack again, and maybe even yet again. It's this melding of the two forms that is positively night and day compared to the dreariness of the most recent Transformers games. And the Decepticons do the exact same thing. Best yet, almost every Decepticon death deals out a digital piñata worth of delicious goodies, from randomly generated weapons to various upgrades of all kinds. Once you've cleared an area, you watch a furthering of the action via cutscene with Megatron and Starscream's complicated love affair screwing everything up, or find a location that allows you to jet back to your base and perform much needed steps. At the base, you can take your weapons and either sell them, equip them, or synthesize them, which is basically taking an axe and a sword, smashing them together, and somehow magically ending up with another sword. In a nod towards intelligent game design, the starter weapons, though iconic, are not as upgradable as some you find in the field, meaning you rarely will have someone still running around with their starter pistols from the beginning of the game to the end of the game. Now that might piss off traditionalists who think that Optimus's gun is irreplaceable, but it does wonders for gameplay, and that's what matters here. You can also create technical upgrades for your Autobots. Think sports CPUs for your own car, except here you're trying to put one together yourself. Either a fairly simple QTE or a fairly complex one, depending on if you want an okay upgrade or a great one. You can even botch this, resulting in an upgrade that has both some positives and some negatives. You can also buy moves for your team. Though they were surprisingly limited in number, they did offer some changes to the combos and strategies, such as burnout and parry. Also heaven for grinders is the fact that you have Batman-style challenge rooms that unlock as you play the main story. Not only do they revisit some of the story's contents, but bad guys still drop loot. A great circle of gaming logic here that does wonders for those kind of gamers who like that kind of thing. And I really do hope you are, because there are a couple little issues here that fans need to keep aware of. One, the game is ultra short, insanely short, less than 5 hours, more like around 4, even with harder difficulty. Those who know Platinum probably expect that, but Transformers fans, beware. You do indeed have the challenge room and side missions that are usually things like timed races in the main levels, but true game story content is incredibly lean. Now one has to wonder if the way the game was announced in a short gestation period is the direct culprit here, and it certainly seems so, because second, much of that time, easily 90% of the time in the game, is the same friggin' 10 blocks of the city, which can get long in the tooth about 10% of the way through the game. You do go to a couple places, but soon you stage a herpes-like return. Additionally, anytime you're engaged in platforming of any kind, you are not engaged in the strength of this title, and there's actually a good amount of it. Also, the driving sections in the big areas are great, but man oh man, the smaller alleys and their electron-driven laser beam barriers did nothing but slow down the gameplay to a friggin' halt, and it repeated continuously. It wasn't that they were hard, it was that they were more basic than the library in Halo, but imagine going back, then back through them, then hey, let's turn around and go back. You know what? Hey guys, what are we doing? Let's go back. With all kinds of oddly placed invisible boxes with items and ramps. It's a stark and almost amateurish contrast to the excellence of the larger open areas, and most definitely to the excellence and comparisons of other Platinum's prior titles. The game does do itself right in the fact that different difficulties throw different groups of baddies at you, and let me tell you, that can require some extreme flexibility in your handling of situations. That was a great add, not like some games that just make bad guys have extra hit points. Fun factorino. You know, much of the time the game was absolute sheer bliss, as it looked and felt like I was playing one of the most dear cartoons from my past in game form. The fighting engine was robust enough to mostly do what I wanted, and seeing iconic characters duel it out was absolutely amazing. However, weird missteps like 2D levels that look fairly poor and the poor platforming were hardships I did not expect, having recently played Platinum's other games. But what really hurt it at times was the lack of location variation, and it felt like a slightly less advanced combat system than prior titles. On the other hand, it's backed up by amazingly fun upgrade and creation systems, offering a customization I don't think most Transformers fans would have ever expected. And the enjoyable challenge rooms, though for the most part they were cut out bits from the main story, were also excellent adds. So I rate games on a buy, wait for a sale, rent, or never touch it again rating scale. If you're a PlatinumGames fan and a fan of Transformers, this is a buy absolutely, even at $50. But if you're one or the other or not fully invested in both, $50 is a difficult burn for missing out on half the reason the game was created. It's just that simple. Without the Transformers, the gameplay and repetitiveness hurt it. Without the excellent but somewhat stunted combat, this wouldn't be a worthwhile Transformers game. And unlike, say, Bayonetta or Vanquish, I'm not sure either aspect on its own would make you desire checking out the other. Listen, at no time did I feel like I wasted my money, but I also don't feel like this title's combat is going to hold me as much as the prior titles from these guys. It's good for what it offers, and it hints at a sequel, which I hope has the money and time to germinate a truly excellent and more developed sequel. So anyway, that's it for me. I hope you guys liked the game. I hope you guys liked the review. If you do, hit thumbs up. If you didn't, hit thumbs down. And as always, peace out.
It appears